everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and I'm excited to be rolling on Kickstarter again for 2019. This technically is February the 28th, so we're at the tail end of February, but basically it's March 1st, so I'm kind of doing this at a weird time, but there's a lot of really good projects right now, and we have gone a little bit of a hiatus over the past 2 months with this particular segment because I wanted to give you guys a break from Kickstarter, and I think going into the end of the year, the December for 2018 was the last one that I did. I wanted to kind of cut back for January and February and give everyone a little break to breathe and recoup and spend time with family and pay bills and all that good stuff, because as we go into 2019, there's going to be a ton more projects coming out the gates, and it's nice to kind of get away from Kickstarter sometimes for a little bit. So we are back, and we do have a number of really cool projects that I'm excited about. This is the first one I want to talk about. My love for Shadows of Brimstone runs very, very deep. Now, there's all kinds of different sides of the equation with this one. Some people were in on the very original Kickstarter. So first off, there have been three major Kickstarters, let's say, for Flying Frog. This is the third one. There was one for Forbidden Fortress, which was just the last one and is currently fulfilling right now. So people are literally getting them dropped on their doorsteps, which is why they started up this third one, because they are fulfilling. And that's another really good thing, that they've learned a lot from that very first Kickstarter. In the very first Kickstarter, there was a lot of confusion, but it also, I think, caught them off guard as to how successful it was. That first Kickstarter had so many stretch goals added into it, and people got so excited that it raised so much money. I think it got out of control, essentially. So people got a bargain. I think they were paying $100 per pledge level back then, but getting the type of content you'd pay like $300 or $400 for now. But they got it all for $100. Now, granted, they had to wait for a lot longer to get it, so there was a little bit of backlash about the wait times on that. Some of it went to retail, so there was some backlash on that too. But again, they were trying to keep themselves afloat, because they're kind of, they kind of got over, they basically kind of went underwater a little bit on that one. But at the end of the day, they ended up coming out of it, and they ended up, and in my opinion, they've gotten much better at communicating than they did from the first Kickstarter. Now, it's not perfect, but it's better than it was, and they've learned a lot. In the Forbidden Fortress Kickstarter, which is the second one that just went by, that was the first Kickstarter that I jumped in on and put some money in, and that's where I decided to actually go ahead and try to catch up on all the content for Shadows of Brimstone, because I'd missed out on the very first Kickstarter, and I had to pick up all of that stuff through retail, or at least over half of it. So then I went to the Forbidden Fortress one and picked up the other half that I was missing. And they allowed for that at that particular time. There were certain black and gold levels you could pick up to kind of grab content from the past, and blah, 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 blah. So regardless, at this point in time, I literally have almost everything except for a couple odd items that they released straight to their store and maybe had at Gen Con that I haven't picked up yet. Don't even know if I will. I don't really need them. I just pretty much have gone after whatever they've released on Kickstarter because I truly love the game. Now, how I got into it was someone was selling two of the core box sets, which are called Swamps of Death and City of the Ancients, or City of, oh my gosh, I can't remember. City of Ancients. I'm going to go with that. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And the cool thing was the person had already assembled all the minis. So that's one of the barriers to entries with this one. You have to know out of the box, you're going to open this up and there's going to be sprues. It's like Kingdom Death in that way. Not in the miniatures, but in that way. You are going to be dealing with cutting things off of sprues and assembling. The good news is, if you're interested in getting in on Shadows of Brimstone, this is the first time you've ever thought about it, or you're coming back, the good thing to know is that as time has gone on, Flying Frog has done a much better job at cleaning up those sprues and basically making the miniature assembly process a heck of a lot more streamlined than it used to be. The pieces are easier to go together. You can use super glue very easily to get the pieces to snug in, nice and tight. Instead of a spider being broken down to like 2 body parts and 8 legs, and then you have to assemble. And in the original Kickstarter, that's what it was like. And I think there was a lot of complaints there about stuff like that. Was just how insane the building process was. But the second Kickstarter and the third, and even this one here, the sprues have been getting better and better and better in terms of like the miniature assembly. So definitely a big plus there. And of course, my copy was already pre-assembled, as I mentioned, so that was a huge bonus. I avoided all that insanity. I started learning on the content that was kind of the first expansions, you could say, for Shadows of Brimstone. And those ones were much better. But anyway, if you're getting in at Shadows of Brimstone Adventures, you're going to be jumping in at a really good point, because this allows you 2 points of entry, as they show here on the Kickstarter. So Gates of Valhalla and Valley of the Serpent Kings. You might be wondering, like, how does this game work? What am I even getting when I get this? I don't know what this game's all about. Essentially, how Shadows of Brimstone works is, in my mind, there's 2 different ways to play this game. The first way is the way that the creators intended through the rulebook and through the scenario book. So basically, you pick up one of these particular boxes, which this one, in this case, you have to be sure of this. Some of them are not standalone. Some of them are like an expansion that you just add the cards and the miniatures into the pile, the heaping piles. It's kind of like adding an Eldritch Horror expansion in. It's just like, boom, throw it in. But with this one, Gates of Valhalla and Valley of the Serpents, these 2 are standalone. So you can actually buy one of them, both of them, and you can actually play them with everything they have in the box. The only other sets like this in the Shadows of Brimstone universe that you can pick up or find in retail currently would be Forbidden Fortress, which is the core box from the second Kickstarter, or those first 2 box core sets that I mentioned, the Swamps of Death and the City of Ancients. So essentially, there's 5 entry points in total into Shadows of Brimstone. You can buy any one of those 5 boxes, and they all have different prices, of course, in order to get a feel for what's going on. Now, the first 2 cores are the most brutal for assembly, for sure, because they were the original ones. Forbidden Fortress would be much better choice, in my opinion, if you're looking to get one of those big coffin box entries. Gates of Valhalla and this Valley of the Serpent Kings, they look to be kind of more like... they're not as big looking in terms of the box here, so my guess is there's like... the price point, the entry point here is a little cheaper. It's just getting you into it without having to buy a monstrous, big $100 plus box. So it ends up being a cheaper pledge level and stuff like this. So those are your 5 points of entry. The purpose of the game, essentially, in the rulebook, will have you do either one-off scenarios. So, I mean, the game is all about level progression, having a character, creating a character, and kind of seeing that character grow over time and going on adventures. It truly is the definition of an adventure game that you do not understand where you're going and what you're going to do in terms of what's going to show up in the dungeon. That's the cool part. You know your mission, because every scenario has a mission, but you just don't know how it's going to unfold. And that's kind of the beauty and the magic of Shadows of Brimstone, is that you go into it thinking that you know your goal, and then certain enemies come out, certain events take place, and just absolute insanity begins. And it's a real interesting mix of the Western world, where it predominantly sits in terms of its theme, and then basically escalates into Darkstone, which is just kind of all over the mines, essentially, that you're moving into. So you're going through these mines. You basically have a tile that's a mine entrance. You move your 4 characters, 2 characters, however many you're playing, into the mine, and you begin your scenario. You know what your goal is, but you can only see the tile that you're on. Every single time you move past that tile, you reveal another tile. It comes from a map deck. And the map deck's made up of all the content that you have for the game. So if you have a ridiculous amount of core sets and all the core sets and all the expansions, that map deck is massive. So the different variation in whatever tile you might get next is, you can't even predict it. It's impossible. You could guess, and you might be right, but it's insane. And I truly mean that, because my decks now for this game are like really large, to the point that, like, when I go into a mission, I have no idea what type of enemies are going to come at me, which really makes me want to come back for more, because it's just so random. So it makes for true adventure, and it really is. So essentially, you're kind of cowboys, basically, in this Western world of Brimstone. Essentially, you're moving into the mines to try to find Darkstone. Darkstone is this really powerful gem, essentially, or stone, that allows you to, and it basically can give you all kinds of crazy powers. But if you hold too much of it on yourself and you're greedy, you can start taking damage from the Darkstone. It can start to mutate you. So there's this balance of using Darkstone to help you, and then there's this downside of taking too much of it, using too much of it, to the point that you can't handle it, and then mutations happen to you. So it's got this H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu-esque mix in with Western. So you might already be thinking, well, that's kind of interesting. I mean, Westerns really aren't something that's done all that often, and then you throw Cthulhu in there. Well, Cthulhu's done all over the place, but hey, with Western, that's different. Like, it's not something that's done. Those 2 things aren't usually mixed. So that's an interesting, side thing. And then, of course, what ends up happening, which things get crazy. So Just think about this. Think about the idea that you go into a mine with a bunch of individuals and you have a mission to do something. You think it's going to be just in that mine. Like you're just going to go in this mine, you're going to kind of unveil tiles as you move through a fog of war. You're just kind of moving tile by tile, fighting enemies, finding things, looting the mine, upgrading your weapons, or not upgrading your weapons, but basically gaining experience. And then all of a sudden, one of the tiles pops up and it shows a portal. And you're going, portal. Interesting. I wonder if I should go through that or not. Well, that's up to you. And this is where the beauty of Brimstone opens up. It's such a simplistic thought in a dungeon crawler, but most dungeon crawlers are on the rails this way. You would come to a door like that and you have to go through that door because that door is part of the story, or it pushes you towards something that's already essentially scripted into the game that you need to do in order to be successful. And in Brimstone, the door just appears there. And there's other alternative paths on the map that you can go. So you don't have to go through that portal. But if you do go through the portal, then you enter into what's called another world. You have a deck of cards based on the number of other worlds that you have. And so if you bought, say, for instance, the very first 2 core sets, there was Jorgono, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and there was the Plateaus, which is basically like an ice planet, essentially, with mechs. And then the Jorgono was like the swamps. So there's like 2 other worlds. You can literally go through a portal in a mine, and you have 2 cards. You'd flip them, and one would send you to the swamps, and one would send you to whatever. You as a party, like say for instance you're playing solo, you might be controlling 4 heroes. You might say, you know what, I'm going to send my two of them through the portal, and the other 2 are going to continue through the mine. Like you can literally split the party up like that, and just have like these 2 guys going on, or girls going on an adventure into the portal, just disappearing and popping out somewhere else, and you start creating another, interconnected web further along on your table of like a totally different world. And so all of a sudden you start realizing, oh wait, we were playing a Western game, and then I started getting infected by Darkstone. There's these all Cthulhu-based monsters in the mine, but wait, I just went to a swamp and there's lizards, and there's these guys shooting like poison darts at me from the trees, and you're going like, this is crazy. And then you jump through that portal, or you jump back into the mines, and then you go a little further into the mines, you find another portal. You go into that portal, it takes you to the plateaus, so you're in this ice planet, and all of a sudden a bunch of mechs show up, and you're like, what? But the coolest thing about the game is not just you have no idea where you're going to go, and of course the more content you buy in terms of other worlds, so there's these deluxe expansions you can pick up called like Caverns of Sindar, which is like a fire lava based planet. Tradera is like a World War III, World War IV kind of feel to it. Essentially it's like the world's just gone to hell basically. And so you can pick up all these different things. Valley of the Serpent Kings here in this Kickstarter, Gates of Valhalla, they're all going to have other worlds included in them. The more of them you have, the more the more random adventures you're going to have. There's a derelict ship. You can end up on a spaceship. So you got Western guys ending up on a spaceship. They went through a portal and they're on a ship in the sky. And all of a sudden you're fighting droids and stuff like this in space. It literally is the epitome of an RPG board game. There's nothing that even comes close to what they can do with this system. And because of the way that they've created it, the theming is endless. There's just through a simple thought process of a portal, being that they can literally take the characters playing the game to any theme that they can possibly dream up, literally means that this game is infinitely expandable, which is partially terrifying for people that want to get into it, but also partially extremely excited for the people that are into it and are sold out for it. And I'm definitely in that sold out camp, because I was into it early enough that anything that comes out for this thing just further enhances the insanity for me. Now, the coolest thing, and I won't go into every detail of the game because that's maybe something I can leave for like a showcase or something else down the road. But when you go to these other worlds, like you could go to a spaceship, for instance, you might find I don't even know what to call it. Like you might find some weapon that's basically meant for space combat. And then you pick that weapon up, you take it back through the portal to the mines, and you've got that weapon with you. The craziest thing is, it's not just about like, oh, cool, I went to a different tile, it's just art, it's just like, I'm just imagining I'm somewhere else. You're literally moving between worlds, and the worlds themselves are actually impacting your character. The items you gather are coming back with you. the adventures that you have are staying with you and that character and that group you're playing with, or if you're playing solo, you know, you have all that experience, excitement to get, you know, in your mind basically as you go through it. And but you have proof of your adventures right in front of you with all the cards, and it's utterly fantastic. Cannot recommend it enough. Um, One of the biggest reasons why I haven't done a playthrough of this thing yet is because it's really tough to show the magic of the game in a single playthrough. That's the craziness of it. Most games you can show exactly how a game feels in one play, but I truly believe you need to play Brimstone like 10 times. And I don't mean it like you won't enjoy it until the 10th time. I mean like it'll take you 10 times of playing it to like really grasp like the different level, especially at this point in, you know, maybe not if you're just picking up the core sets and that's it, but if you were to just buy everything and go crazy, it would take you quite a number of plays to really truly understand what is going on. Because there's a lot. And it's the good thing about it, the system is not difficult to understand. The rules are not complex, they're not overly insane. There's a lot of dice rolling, so if you're opposed to dice rolling, this is a game you need to avoid because there is dice rolling involved. You're rolling for your shooting, you're rolling for everything. Like the game, you roll on charts. Should have mentioned that way earlier on as well. But the thing is, there's ways to mitigate that as well. But and of course, house ruling comes into play too here. So certain people have found, you know, a rule here, a rule there they don't like, they house rule it, right? It's your system. It's basically D&D on your table in a board game form, and you can kind of, you know, manipulate it all you want, but it's all, the GM is not part of the equation. It's all housed inside of the game, using these really cool reference charts to figure out the enemy AI and everything. It's phenomenal. So anyway, long story short, this Kickstarter is going to be extremely successful. It already is. So there's no point even in saying that. That was just kind of silly. But like, it's over $1 million Canadian. So it's at 857,000 US, has a good amount of backers. Of course, the majority of the backers that are here are going to be longtime lovers of the game from way back, and I'm definitely in that camp. There's only 8 days to go. What I would say with this one is there is absolutely nothing wrong if you are interested in seeing what Shadows of Brimstone has to offer and you want to kind of get the best case. Like if I had nothing of Shadows of Brimstone, I would avoid Forbidden Fortress, which was the second Kickstarter, and I would avoid the original Core 2 boxes. I would do this. This is how I would enter in, because these two entry points to get into the game are the best so far, in my opinion, because you're going to get a whole load of content between these two, plus an outrageous amount of stretch goals as they start to load these things in. You can see like the contents of the box themselves has some pretty cool miniatures and things like that, pretty cool other worlds. And you also notice, guys, that like some of these you might be going, hey, look, it's another frost area. Well, for those of us that have the I think it's Targa, I forget the name of it, I think it's Plateaus of Targa or something like that, but the ice planet that's on the opposite side of a tile in the original Corbett games, this Valhalla one further adds more tiles for it, which is why there's another, you know, more ice-based tiles essentially. And then if you go down to this swamps one, actually that's back up, I think. This one will add to the swamps of Jargono, which is like, see, the exact same thing. So they constantly are building on top of themselves as well. So it's not, they don't always just go, here's a new otherworld. Sometimes they actually will say, here's New Otherworld, but on the other side of the tiles is more mine tiles or more valley tiles to lead you into the mines, or maybe it's more of a particular otherworld. So they're always just enhancing and just basically bolstering what's already an insanely massive world. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a really hard game to explain, to be honest, but it's really not. It's just hard to kind of sum it up. And I've already gone on way too long. But there's a lot of really good stuff here. The sculpts are way better than they used to be. And I highly recommend, if you're really curious about how the system works, how it plays, and you want to get something that in regards to Brimstone, then this would be it. This would be my recommendation. If you don't want to wait, though, so that's the other thing. As you can see from this particular pledge area here, September 2020 is a long ways to wait, right? So you got to balance there. You got to balance whether or not you want to wait until then. And if you're excited to try it now, then my suggestion would be to go pick up Forbidden Fortress, because that thing is hitting retail soon and would be the best entry into the game, in my opinion, from a core box experience besides these two that are on this Kickstarter. And then if you truly love the game from Forbidden Fortress, then go back and search out those two original core game boxes and add them in. And if you're talking about an order to purchase things in from the very, very beginning, again, this Kickstarter first, and then the other stuff later in whatever order you deem fit. What I would say is always go after all the base boxes first. They give you the most bang for buck in terms of the miniatures, cards, and everything else. Once you have all the base boxes, then the most important expansion of all of them is the Frontier Town expansion. What the Frontier Town expansion does, and it's not shown here, but essentially it gives you the in-between game, and it's super important. You could even pick it up, again, if you didn't want to go after this Kickstarter, you could pick up Forbidden Fortress retail, and you could also pick up Frontier Town, and those two mixed together would be great enough. And essentially what it's going to do is allow you to play in the mines, plus play in a totally different other world, plus and your in-between game, you actually have a town to go back to. So that's really cool. And I'm not joking when I say that. It's almost a necessity. You have to get that Frontier Town if you're going to pick up one of these core sets. So make sure it's high on your list, because it adds a lot to the in-between game, in-between scenarios. And you'll see what I mean when you pick it up. The other thing I wanted to mention is this amazing variant. This is the last thing I'm going to say on Shadows of Brimstone before we move on to another thing, because I've already talked way too long on this one. But there is a file in the Board Game Geek file section called Hexcrawl, and it was created by an individual named Sid, and I totally forget his last name, but he deserves like an award or something for the amount of effort that he put into this variant. It's incredible. It's not a solo variant, because this game can be played cooperatively or solo out of the box. It's literally a campaign system for the game that dwarfs what's in the rulebook and scenario book. So the scenario book that comes with Shadows of Brimstone is great. It's what I would recommend that you start playing with. Like, try one of the scenarios, give it a shot, play a couple of them in a row, level your character up a couple times, get used to how that flows. But then once you get the idea, the gist of what's in those scenarios, immediately go to Board Game Geek, go to the file section of either of the two original core games. So that's City of Ancients or Swamps of Death. Go to the file section. You'll see the very, very top file, most thumbed up file they have there. Should be a zip file, I believe, of encompassing a number of documents, or it's just the documents individually. But literally, he went ahead and he created new tables to roll on. He created full campaigns, different styles of campaigns to play, but it's all done. There's no work for you whatsoever. It's literally print and play. And it's not print and play in terms of printing cards. It's print a document to understand the charts and the cool different things you can do. Essentially, the charts you can roll on, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's amazing. I cannot say enough good stuff about it. It's by far the best fan-made variant to a game I've ever seen. I have never seen another variant that's been made so thorough and so well loved by the community. And to be honest, if Flying Frog was smart, they would get in contact with that individual and they would loop that thing in as a, I don't know what, Kickstarter, whatever. They need to get that thing to be part of the official campaign system with this game, because it's absolutely phenomenal. So anyway, that was a lot, and I really don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to sell you on this one, as more so than just tell you how much I love it. And it's really hard to kind of do both, or do neither, or do something in between, because I just truly love the game. And I tell my friends about this all the time. I really enjoy it, and I will pick up anything that they release for this thing, because I've been so happy with the products as they've come along. And I'm super pumped for Forbidden Fortress. I'm just at the tail end of assembling my miniatures from the last one, and it just keeps getting cooler and cooler as it goes along. And again, like I said, it's like usually most people are looking for that like one game they can sink their teeth into for the long haul, and because you don't want to have a lot of these things because they're expensive, right? But if you're looking for one that checks multiple themes, you literally are not going to find something more perfect than this. it's just impossible because most board games in general are stuck to a theme or maybe a secondary theme, and that's about as good as it gets. Shadows of Brimstone opens the door on so many different themes molded into the same game that there is literally something for everyone, and you can purchase based on the themes you like and just disregard the ones you don't. That's the cool plug and play, functionality of the game. Basically, is that if you just look at something and go, I don't like the Gates of Valhalla because I don't like Vikings, don't buy it. Buy the Valley of the Serpent Kings. Like, you literally are picking how your game is going to unfold. So it's really cool that way. So that is enough for Shadows of Brimstone. Highly, highly, highly recommended, and something I will definitely at some point, I just don't want to promise when, will be doing kind of a showcase on the channel. We'll do like a setup for it. What I'd really like to do if I get lucky sometime this year or something like that, I really don't know when it's going to actually work 100% just yet based on my schedule, but when I do go ahead and do it, I really want to show off the hex crawl thing because I know it inside and out. I don't have to even look at the book, basically. I just know it. I might have to refresh myself on a couple things, but it's ingrained in me for the past few years. So if you have any questions about the game, let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to let you know anything else. And if anything I said along the way here, because I said a lot and there's a lot to kind of soak in there, if any of it made no sense or I went off on too many bunny trails and lost and didn't answer some of the things I was talking about or didn't fully flush out some of the things I was talking about, then let me know. Next up, I want to talk about a really cool Kickstarter that has nothing to do with actual gameplay, but is more just a bling upgrade. Now, this is only going to appeal to people that have Dinosaur Island, because I shouldn't say just Dinosaur Island, but another game called Dinogenics as well. Because this particular Kickstarter is from Meeple Source. They make some fantastic meeples, and for those of you guys that are familiar with the meeples that they make for other products, you can scroll all the way to the bottom of this Kickstarter, and you'll notice got them all right here. So for instance, I'm very familiar with the Scythe ones. The only ones I actually don't have are these amazing worker meeples, which I really want to get at some point, but I have everything else around it. And they, of course, have other tokens and things like that, and really colorful ones for different games. They're really fantastic all around. So the reason I'm mentioning this one, guys, is because I actually, if I haven't already, and I don't believe I have, but I just recently unboxed the I recently unboxed Dinosaur Island Extreme Edition. I just haven't actually put it up on the on the channel yet. So I don't know if that unboxing is going to show up first before this lands, or this is going to land before that lands. So yeah, that's why I'm showing this as part of this. So if I haven't released the Dinosaur Island unboxing, I wanted to show you guys what it has to offer for solo play and things like that. But I wanted to really just unbox it for you guys and show you the really cool production value of it. But the awesome thing is that the solo mode is built within the game. So they do have a solo mode out of the gates, and this essentially just upgrades your dinosaurs, because the dinosaurs that come in the game are just plastic. They're shaped for the different types of dinosaurs, but literally they're just all pink, and it's okay, but it's totally fine. But it's certainly not as cool as looking at all these dinosaurs. And they're going off the rails with this. They've got like a ton. So if you want to go bonkers, you can buy these things in different partial pledges and upgrades and all this stuff. They get fairly pricey as you go along, though. So if you're one of those people that really love Dinosaur Island and you play this thing solo, let me know in the comments below, because this is a really interesting one. You can go crazy and get the full Dinosaur Island upgrade. It'll literally give you all of the dinosaurs for the entire game for 178, which is nuts. And then Dinogenics is a little bit cheaper, so that's a nicer option if you wanted to go with that particular game instead. And then of course you get some other add-ons for Dinogenics and things like that if you want to pick those up. So that's pretty much it for that one. It's pretty simplistic. It was just kind of more of a bling upgrade, a cool one that I ran across. There's only 60 hours to go, so I do apologize if this is literally in like the last hour or two before when I launch this video, because it may not be that helpful. But I wanted to make you guys aware of it for those of you that love Dinosaur Island and want to kind of make it look a little fancier. All right, so Tiny Epic Tactics featuring a 3D environment. Now, I will admit, guys, that ever since what was a Tiny Epic Quest came out, that was probably the last one that I was really pumped up about. But this one has definitely got my attention. I really, really like the idea that you're doing like a tactical combat in a 3D environment. That seems kind of cool. Like, I just like the idea of it being 3D, I think, more so than anything else. And then the fact that this thing can be easily moved around, something that's really super portable. It has solo built right in because every Tiny Epic typically does. And they have 2 players and 4 player and all this kind of stuff. Again, this is just, it's nice, and I try to do this as much as I can. I try to find these small box games because we all have enough of these gigantic monstrosities that take up a lot of space. Sometimes it's nice to have a game that has small footprint on the shelf but has a lot of gameplay to it. So this is one that I would recommend checking out. They have a really, really good and well-made Kickstarter page. It's really informative. It's definitely visually appealing. You'll be able to see absolutely everything you're going to get with the game. How it flows. You can even see the box here. It literally shows you like a breakdown of how the components kind of fold up and roll up and throw inside the box, which I think is really cool. And even the box itself has some lining and stuff. So you can also get, I think, an apocalyptic version of this. So I think it's not just stuck to fantasy. If I remember correctly, I saw, and here are some of the different clans. You got like the fighters, the wizards, rogues, beasts. So you normally get, this is what you're going to get inside the box. So this is kind of like a quick overview of the different tokens. You're going to get a bunch of unit cards, tactic cards. Those are solo enemies. So again, if you want to go up against the enemies, there'll be a built-in system for that. Some crystal cards and a bunch of tokens. Deluxe mini expansion of lanterns. Add some extra stuff. Now down here, here it is. The Winter Highlands. Oh, there's 2 of them. That's right. Sorry, there's 2. Savage Wastelands is the one I was remembering, but basically just different terrain. And of course, that's going to change up the mechanics of the game and things like that. So that's really cool. So again, if you like the idea of this already and you're kind of going like, this is going to be awesome, I'm going to get a lot of plays out of this, then maybe it's worth to pick that up because you'll have 3 different terrain, 3 different ways to play the game essentially. So there's a lot here to look at. So this is one that I would recommend just because of the fact that Tiny Epic quests have been pretty solid for the most part for solo play, and that's really the angle I'm coming in, is I really care about the solo play aspect of things. And for solo play, they have been pretty solid. And like I said, the last one I really enjoyed, and the one that stuck in my collection was Tiny Epic Quest. That was the last one that I now, Galaxies, there's a really big following of people, I think, that like Galaxies quite a bit. Now, it's quite a bit older now, so maybe Quest or one of those other recent ones have knocked it out. Mechs didn't really appeal to me that much. I think that was the last one before Tactics was the mech one, and that one I didn't really, it didn't do anything for me. But Tactics definitely got me intrigued. I was like, 3D terrain and, there's some tactical fighting and stuff. I don't know. It was different. So I was like, okay, this is something interesting. So this is one to take a look into. It's something I'd recommend, and they do a really good job at their turnaround and stuff like that. As you can see here, like you'll have the game before the end of the year. This next Kickstarter is called TerrainCrate 2. This is the second iteration of a Kickstarter that I was familiar with. It already had one prior and has already delivered. There's a lot of backing behind this one already. I'm really, really excited to see that. This is really cool because it brings back memories. When I first did my Gloomhaven playthrough, which was about 2 years ago, I actually used Mantic's miniatures in my playthrough, and then started using them throughout other playthroughs as well because they really fit the theme really well. And you can see here, actually, if you go through this particular Kickstarter, that you can see that these are very universal miniatures. It can be used in pretty much anything. The second I saw these, actually, they reminded me of the trees from the latest Simon game, Hate. So it's like, you can pretty much take any of this stuff, and as long as it fits the theme or the style of whatever game you're using, these are really cool. So again, here, like they're offering different sets, and from my understanding with these sets, how that works is Kickstarter will give you, or if you're pledging through Kickstarter, you're not only getting a cheaper price, but you're also getting these things before they go to retail. And then, of course, anything that's got a check by it is additional stuff thrown in for the Kickstarter that won't be in this Gothic Manor pack when it goes to retail. So this stuff will go to retail eventually, but it just won't have the additional pieces that come through the Kickstarter. So there is exclusives in this one, and so there is a worthwhile reason to jump in. But again, it all comes down to, do these particular miniature themes fit the games that you're playing? Are these going to fill a void in your collection or maybe bling out a game for you? So in the very first terrain crate, this one here, of course it wouldn't. That's actually kind of weird. Oh, because they probably have so many. It's like limiting how much I can see. But anyway, I won't bother with that. But essentially, there was another. It was more generic the first time around. It was essentially fantasy. So you had like dungeons, you had like town, you had like battleground. That the stuff that would hit home the most for most games. So it worked really well. So I actually did a video on it on the channel. So if you want to see them up close and personal, what they look like when they're actually done, or you've never opened up a pack yourself, I've actually seen these train crates landing in my local store as well, but I do have a video showing unboxings of those, so you can actually get a nice up-close view of them and see whether it's something that would be worthwhile. Again, they do sell stuff that's perfect for Gloomhaven, like literally perfect. The size of them fits the board phenomenally. You can throw them all over the board and really liven up particular scenarios. I do it all the time. So, and I don't do it with just Gloomhaven. I actually use their products throughout a number of different playthroughs on my channel. Not so much lately though, because a couple of the ones I've been doing haven't really tied into the ones that I have. But when I can, I try to, because I really think it adds to the game. So in terms of you and your game group, or just you on your own, if you want to bling a game out, this is definitely one I'd recommend. They're really good with their delivery time frames and things like that, and it's solid. So that is TerrainCrate 2, and there is still 6 days to go. So by the time I launch this out, should be about 5 or 4 days left. So there'll be some ample time for you to make a decision on that. And also know that the first TerrainCrate sets are already in retail. So if you want to just jump right to something that's already existing out there for you to grab, then you can do that as well. And last but certainly not least is Aeon's End: The New Age. This is a cooperative deck building game, and it's all about fantasy survival, and it's definitely a highly recommended solo game. This is one that I've already done a playthrough on the channel for a showcase for War Eternal, which was one of the products in this range of Aeon's End products. And you might be a little lost as to where this all fits in. Essentially, you have the first Aeon's End, you have War Eternal, which was the second one that came out, which essentially was more content for the game and things like that, but also standalone. You could play it on its own as is. Then they came out with a Aeon's End Legacy, which just recently started hitting the shores of backers and things like that. I did an unboxing of that one as well, although it was a spoiler-free unboxing because it's a legacy game, so there's definitely spoilers in there. And now they're back on Kickstarter with more content. So basically just a new world and a new adventure. And this is one that I highly recommend. If you like deck builders, you are missing out big time if you don't pick this thing up. Again, don't pick it up just because I say to pick it up. But if you like deck builders, look into this thing. Watch some videos. You can check out my videos. There's also videos elsewhere on it as well. And it is a really well-designed game. So really at this point, they're just building upon an already solid system. So it's just one of those things, very much like I was talking about with Brimstone. It's like they're just giving you more content, more entry points into the world essentially to play. So again, they're also going to have some stuff from the prior stuff as well. So if you look here, Aeon's End: New Age, and then I believe Shattered Dreams is another section here. You got the Ancients here. I would not be the least bit surprised. There it is. That I knew it was here, but they got Legacy here. So it's also breaking down to help people understand the differences between what's coming out now and what just landed in Legacy. So you can kind of pick and choose which way you want to go there. You got all kinds of preview videos here and stuff like that throughout. Unlocking stretch goals like crazy, of course, and then you have some older stuff too, because they do allow for you to go back and pick up some of the older stuff in the Pledge Manager, which I really appreciate. So if you want to go gun ho and just pick up like everything under the sun, you can do that. They also came out with these neoprene playmats. This is what I don't have this yet. I would kill for this because I love neoprene playmats. This looks really nice. So if you like having a really nice mat now, they've added that into the pile. But again, once it goes to the Pledge Manager, then you're gonna have lots of options. So a lot of this stuff here, like here's the original Aeon's End. This is a nice breakdown. Actually, this is perfect. I probably should have gone here first, but this is essentially what Wave 1 of Aeon's End looked like, the first run through. This was the second run through, War Eternal. This is the one that I did a playthrough of. Aeon's End Legacy I unboxed, but I haven't played it, and I won't be playing it because I'd be spoiling stuff if I did. So these are the 3 waves. So if you're interested in any one wave or all of them, then they're all laid out right here, so you know exactly what to get. And of course, you've got everything located here in terms of shipping and stuff. So they do a really good job laying this out. This one doesn't need as much explaining. The reason I spend so much time on the Brimstone one is because there's just so much useful information that you can tell people about Brimstone in order to help them out. So I hope I was able to do that. With this one, it's laid out for you on the Kickstarter page itself. And again, this is a high recommendation. I don't need to say much more about this one. I love it. It's one of those ones that just won't leave the collection for me. I just enjoy it, and every iteration of this thing, I want to see more of it because the mechanics of it are just really really cool. So got staying power for sure. So that's going to do it, guys. That actually wraps up all of the Kickstarter projects that I wanted to highlight. Again, there are many more, and there were some I was even debating adding into the pile here. But again, I want to keep it short and concise, and just to the ones that I really think stand out, personally for me. So hopefully I've done that here. A couple of them this time around had to do with just upgrading, blinging out your game. So they weren't just games. So some of those might be dismissed by people because you may not be interested in that particular game that is blinging out, and things like that. But then there's some games here too that are really, really well-known ones. And the coolest part about it is when you see a game come back to Kickstarter that is really highly rated, like Shadows of Brimstone and Aeon's End. When these ones come back to Kickstarter, it's really exciting because you just know there's going to be a strong following behind it, which makes the Kickstarter that much more exciting to get in on. If you're brand new to either of these, though, then you've got some research ahead of you in terms of which one you want to go with, or none of them, or all of them. That's on you, and you're going to have to figure that out. But I will gladly answer any questions you have in the comments below, so let me know. Also, if anyone has any other Kickstarter projects that I missed and you really think that the community here in terms of a solo capacity should know about it, let me know in the comments below as well. I'd love to hear about some other ones that people have caught, because the Kickstarter is a gigantic bag of projects, and some of them gets they shuffle all the way to the bottom, and they're very easily missed. So there might be some gems in there, right? And I try to look for them myself as well. I spend quite a bit of time researching, like too much probably, but it's still possible to miss projects. So again, let me know in the comments below about ones that I've missed. I'd love to hear about them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Rolling on Kickstarter. As always, keep on rolling solo.